Namaste. The divine in me bows before the divine in each one of you. Welcome to another video in the series of integrating the sacred. And really what we do is very simple. By prayerfully and lovingly contemplating the gospel for the day and how it applies to our everyday life, we aspire to open ourselves up to the light of Christ, the Christ consciousness, and then to pass that light on to everyone we meet in our day-to-day lives. It's that simple. So I'm going to get into the gospel for today in a moment, but let me put it in a general context. In the Christian world, and specifically in the Catholic world, we are in the season of Advent, where we are preparing to celebrate the birth of Christ. Now, we don't just celebrate it as some sort of historical event. It is an historical event. But what we really attempt to do is to enter into the timelessness of Christmas, entering into the great light and grace of that first Christmas, where the God-man, Jesus, became one of us, where he bathed the entire consciousness of the human race in the Christ consciousness, or what Yogananda would refer to as the Krishna consciousness. So that's what we do. And today's gospel is meant to prepare us for that. But I want to talk about it on two levels. There's these great moments in history where God reveals light to the planet Earth. One of those moments is when God gave Moses the 10 Commandments. The 10 Commandments are a foundation for intimacy with God, a foundation for becoming love, God's love in the world. Within the Hindu tradition, the Bhagavad Gita, that great scripture, was another moment when the heavens opened up, so to speak, and light descended. And of course, as I already said, the birth of Christ was another of those moments. Those are the macro moments. There are micro moments, little moments, every instant of our life where God is coming to us, where the Christ is coming to us and the Christ consciousness is coming to us. And that's what I want to take away from the gospel today. So let me get to the gospel, and then I will break it down for all of us. Jesus said to his disciples and us, as it was in the days of Noah. Now, a little comment. The days of Noah, we know there was a flood. And you don't have to take this as scientific history, but it is spiritual history. There was the flood. What does the flood represent? Chaos, crisis, and confusion. We see that in the world at large, and we also see it impacting our day-to-day lives. So this is a scripture for all of us. As it was in the days of Noah, so it will be at the coming of the Son of Man. Jesus is talking about the descent of this Christ consciousness, the descent of God into time and space. So it will be at the coming of the Son of Man. In those days before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, up to the day that Noah entered the ark. They did not know until the flood came and carried them away. So it will also be at the coming of the Son of Man. Again, when that Christ consciousness descends in big ways and in little ways. So it will be with the Son of Man. Therefore, I tell you, stay awake. Stay awake. So, as I said just a few minutes ago, there is never a moment in our life at the micro level when God isn't coming to us, when Christ and the light of Christ and the Christ consciousness isn't present to us. The problem is we get so much caught up in the day-to-day affairs of our life. We get caught up in all the drama of life that we miss all of these micro moments of grace. Again, they're coming to us all the time. But because of the chaos and the confusion and the crisis, we miss. Let me give you some examples. Every minute, every second of our existence, every second of our existence, there are 1 million complex chemical reactions taking place in our bodies. And those aren't random chemical reactions. They are purposeful. They happen to support our life and keep us alive. Now, what's behind these purposeful chemical reactions? Well, you can say DNA, but what is DNA? DNA is purposeful information, intentional information, designed information to keep us alive. Well, what is behind that designed information? It's the intelligence of God. It is that Christ consciousness, the mind of God in time and space, doing everything to serve our evolution. So, again, at that very micro level, those chemical reactions in your body, that's God present. That's the intelligence of God. That's the light of God, organizing all of those chemicals in your body to keep you alive. When I woke up this morning, and I truly believe this, it was God that woke me up. Why? Because God still wants me alive. There are lessons for me to learn, and there's ways that I can still serve. I challenge you to play around with what I'm saying to you. There were millions of people that went to bed last night, and they didn't wake up today. Why? Because their time was up. If you woke up today, and when you wake up tomorrow, it's because your time is not up yet. God is literally keeping you alive, waking you up, because, again, more lessons to be learned and more loving to give to others. Again, it's God coming to me. It's the Christ consciousness coming to me in the morning and waking me up. It's like a little Christmas every day. And just at another level, what about the food that we eat? If we could just stand back and begin with the process of evolution, that everything that had to happen just perfectly to create the apple that I had for lunch today, all of these coincidences coming together to create that apple for me. God created that apple for me. There was a great Franciscan philosopher who came about 100 years after Francis in the 13th century, Duns Scotus. And he talked about creation. And first of all, he talked about trees. He said, God doesn't just create a genre of trees. God creates each tree specifically, uniquely. Well, what's true for the trees, they're true for you or me. Each one of us, has been created specifically by God. We are God's handiwork. And none of us are identical to anyone else. God has created you and me unique because we have a unique gift to give to the world. Not special, just unique. Well, that is the Christ consciousness shaping me, forming me, that shaped me and formed me in my mother's womb, that shaped me genetically to be the person that I am today. So I share all these little tidbits of truth to show you how God is always coming to us at this micro level. Yes, there are those big moments of history, and I touched on some of them. But God comes to us every day in a million ways, billions of ways, trillions of ways, and all these little micro gifts, all these little micro manifestations of God's love and light. And part of the spiritual life is to begin to be aware of them, to be aware of this intelligence of God that is attempting to guide us, not just biologically, but to guide us psychologically, to guide us spiritually, to guide us towards our highest evolution. It's a great gift to be born a human being, because we have the capacity, and this is what I want to stress, we have the capacity to learn to consciously communicate, to consciously receive God's grace, God's light, God's guidance for our life, God's intelligence. And the more we do that, the more our life becomes a sacred and divine affair. So I want to talk about briefly how we do that. The first thing I think is going to be obvious, but not for everybody. We have to have a life that is relatively centered, relatively calm, relatively in order. If we are living an immoral life, if we're addicted to pornography, if we're addicted to alcohol, if we've really just gone down a dark corridor, that makes it very difficult to hear the voice of God. That makes it very difficult to receive that Christ consciousness, that divine intelligence within us. So the first thing, and it's not about earning God's love. God's love is freely given. But we learn to live a healthy, moral, balanced life, not so that God will love us, but because God already does love us, and we're desirous of receiving and being open to that love. So there has to be, again, a level of order and calmness. The second piece, and I talk about this all the time, is meditation. Now, at the deepest level, we don't meditate to have fantastic experiences. Sometimes they come, but they always go. We meditate, Yogananda tells us, to nurture an interior silence, an interior calmness, an interior spaciousness. And in that spaciousness, in that calmness, then we can step back from all the noise that is coming at us. We can step back from all the internal noise that bubbles up. And we can learn to watch the noise, to watch the compulsions, the fears and the desires that emerge, to watch them not with a judgmental spirit, but with a level of detachment and compassion. And whatever we watch, we're not being controlled by. Whatever we can witness with compassion, we are free of. So in that space, something magical begins to happen. Our intuitions expand, and we literally begin to intuit God's intelligence for us, God's guidance for us, God's voice. Thomas Aquinas, the great Catholic philosopher and saint, said, "Silence is the language of God, and everything else is a poor translation." So we meditate to create, again, a baseline of calmness, a baseline of silence and spaciousness. Then Yogananda tells us to take that calmness, that interior silence, into activity. So I'll just say how this works for me as I'm going through my day with this background of silence, with this background of calm, with this background of God's presence. As I go through my day and I feel certain, drama coming up, noise beginning to capture my attention, I can watch. I can slow my breath down, pausing that second in between inhalation and exhalation. And in that watching, I can listen. And in that listening, there's always an intuition that bubbles up that tells me whether to go left or right, to choose this and to not choose that. And it can happen in a millisecond. You don't have to stop in the middle of a meeting and sit down in a lotus position and meditate. You just breathe, watch, offer the silent prayer, God, please guide me. And the guidance comes. The other thing that's very important in this silence is it's not an inert kind of silence. It's a stillness. But within that stillness, we offer a prayer that goes like this: God, I want to be your instrument of love and light in the world today. God, I want to be the best version of myself for everyone in my life, my family, and everyone I meet. And I'll use Mother Teresa's phrase, God, I want to be a pencil in your hand. When we say that prayer in silence, the birth of Christ is able to bubble up, the birth of Christ consciousness, the awakening of Christ consciousness, and that Christ light begins to bubble up through the silence into our minds, into our imagination, into our hearts, into our will. And we find ourselves being empowered to be a light in the world. All right, so let me just, again, summarize everything I've said. Yes, there are those macro moments when God comes into human history. But in the micro moments, God is continually coming to us. And part of the essence of the spiritual life is to avail ourselves to all of the manifestations of God, to have that inner stillness and silence so that we can hear the voice of God, the intuitions, and then be an instrument of God's light in the world. And that's how we make Christmas, so to speak, the Christ birth, the Christ light, and an integral part of our day-to-day lives. I'm going to close with a beautiful prayer written by Francis of Assisi after hours of meditating on the cross and on the Christ image, opening himself up to that Christ light. I'm going to give it a brief commentary after every line. I promise this will be the end. Most high, glorious God, where are his intentions, his affections? On God, that transcendental light and love that has come into the world. That's where he's placing the primacy of his intention. Enlighten the darkness of my heart. Darkness here is ignorance. We have affections, we have intentions, we have hopes and dreams, but often they're misdirected because of darkness. And he's saying, enlighten the darkness of my heart. Show me what I am to love and what I am to do. Give me right faith that every moment of my existence, you are with me, you are coming to me, you are taking care of me, you are guiding me, and you are leading me. Help me to believe that, to have faith, to trust that, to live my life as though that's true. And then it becomes true. Give me hope. Sustain me when the floods are coming and the crisis is coming. Give me hope, your light, that it's ultimately going to be okay and that you are with me in the darkness and the light is going to triumph over the darkness. And give me perfect charity, love. We only become fully human and fully divine to the extent that we love. Fill me with understanding and knowledge that I may fulfill your holy command. In that silence, in that stillness, whether it's meditation or as we move through our day, just stop and say, give me understanding, give me knowledge, so that I can be the force of your love and your light in the world. It's that simple, not that easy, but it is that simple. God bless you. If you have enjoyed this video, give it a like. If you think it's good, pass it on to somebody else and subscribe. God bless you. Thank you.